Welcome everybody to another interview on the Buffalo History Channel, and I'm going to get right to it because I am very honored to have these three lovely ladies join me. They are going to talk about, I think, mainly three different things that went on in Buffalo that were really connected. The legendary Black Dance Workshop, as well as the Center for Positive Thought and Watu, Sokoni. As well as I'm going to talk to them about, the Model Cities Expo and the Juneteenth, the original Juneteenth festivals as well. I'm going to talk about all of that. I'm going to let these ladies talk, but I want to introduce them first. Right here is Frances Hare, Gail Wells, and Yvonne James-Brown. All of you, welcome to the Buffalo History Channel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay. I'll start off with, I think it started with the Black Dance Workshop. Talk to us about how the Black Dance Workshop started.
I'm going to let you guys start on that part because I came in after. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, one of the things that was really instrumental in the start of the workshop was what was going on the campus of University at Buffalo. Gail, myself, and our founding artistic director, and sort of the spirit of getting us all together, Carol Kariyama Welsh, we were all college students at UB. And in 1969, the University at Buffalo was we were preparing to present our first Black Arts Festival. And that was the start of initially a group of dancers, of ladies getting together to dance. One of the people who was also instrumental in that festival, and Gail and I were talking about his wonderful work, was Senior Hainsworth, who at that time was one of the teachers and dancers, and he was actually a drummer, but also danced and had a dance company later on out of the African American Cultural Center. But we came together to perform for that festival.
Yes, but what really is significant is the time. We had come to the University of Buffalo from New York City, from the different boroughs of New York City, and we had two members that were from Buffalo, New York. It was a time when the University of Buffalo was letting in its largest class of Black students. There were maybe 25 of us. I started out as a history major. I was in a department that had two other amazing Black sisters, one working on her PhD, Dr. Lillian Williams, who is at the university now teaching history. And the other one was Jan Peters, who got her master's in history.
Oh my
and
God.
She ran an amazing center that was right in the Fruit Belt. And I was the junior of the group because I was in the undergraduate program. So we were brought in by Upward Bound. At the same time, we were brought to the University of Buffalo. Buffalo State College had an organization called the Black Liberation Front, which was their student movement organization. At UB, we were the Black Student Union. And at Canisius, they had the Afro-American Society. So you had three groups of students that were really infiltrating, and I'll say it infiltrating, the predominantly white campuses here in the city of Buffalo. And we were all doing various projects and coming together and really doing incredible things because of the incredible time we were, in historically.
And for me, Well, I was not into dance at all. I was very much an artsy tart. I did arts and crafts. I drew, I sewed, I did all those kinds of things. So I was pretty much an introvert. Okay, so but once I got into college, because there was a part of the Model Cities program, the SEEK program, and they people, you know, according to your income, you were allowed to go to college. You had kind of like remedial courses, but you had to take one college credit. So I decided, why not take dance? My mother wanted me to dance. It wasn't working. I was a tomboy, so it wasn't working. So therefore, I started taking dance. And as I did that, Dr. Maxine Sheets, I always say her name because she was the first one that introduced me into really dancing. And then I started using my body as an art instrument, like a pen, painting, and that sort of thing. And a guy I was dating happened to say, you know, he went out to UB. He says, there's a group of ladies out there dancing. You should go check them out. And that's what happened. So it was very organic. It was like happy accidents for me. Okay, so dance was never in my headset whatsoever. So then I bounced over there and I met Carol Welsh at that time. Okay, and she's telling me about the group. Somehow she let me in. Okay, and I obviously I was making it work. I was working hard. I made my kitchen a bar so I can get in here and look like something. You know, every time I looked in the mirror, I saw her doing something. I took her body and transposed it into me and said, I'm doing that. Okay, and that's how I grew into it. So it's really a bunch of little happy accidents that happened, not from anything I ever wanted to be a dancer or a teacher, because I got thrown into teaching as well. I never thought about teaching, and then I grew into that as well. So I got a lot of stuff out there. I mean, it just like pulled me right out of that little, you know, Frances, the little girl thing. And you start to grow up into a young lady, you know, a woman, and be someone of purpose. And then plus the things that they talked about and were things that were related to our community. You know, I mean, I guess they call it urban, you know, but whatever it was, you know, it was all connecting kinds of things. And I'm a huge person of connecting and communicating and all that kind of thing. So it was just working for me.
And you know what? When Frances said that, I didn't come from a dance background either. I really came from a background of community involvement. I grew up in Harlem. So when I was in Harlem, I was a member of SNCC before I came to Buffalo. I was the president of my senior class. So I kind of was the activist. I was the person that was really interested in the workshop because of the type of dance they were doing. Mm-hmm. If they weren't doing that type of dance, I never would have pointed my toe. But I was enthralled like Frances because we were doing African dance because of Senior Hainsworth. And, you know, in Harlem, I heard about the African American Cultural Center because they were doing work with Denny Zulu and with Alatunji. Alatunji and Denny Zulu had dance studios in Harlem on 125th Street. So when I went there, they said, well, Gail, if you get bored, just go to the African American Cultural Center. They have all kinds of things for you to do. Because I wasn't really excited about coming to Buffalo. So I had done my research before I got there. And like Frances, I got mesmerized by what the choreography was like and what we were doing as a group. And I decided to join too. Yvonne, tell them how Yvonne and Cardi were the only ones, I think, with a dance background.
Yeah.
For myself, I came from the Bronx, the South Bronx, and had some training at the Harlem School of the Arts. Back in the 60s, the African American opera singer, Dorothy Maynor, had retired from the Met. She was the wife of the minister of this St. Nicholas Presbyterian Church on 141st Street in Harlem. and they had a very large community building. And she wanted to do something for the children and youth in the neighborhood and in the city, actually, because kids came from all over. So Dorothy Maynor, who is in, you look up any history book on opera, and especially African-American opera singers, she's in there. And she called on her friends from the professional performing arts world in New York to come and give classes to children from Harlem, the Bronx, and everywhere at this particular facility that was attached to her husband's church. And it was amazing. And that was my initial training. I had ballet and I had modern dance. And she had African-American artists in there teaching. And so when I came to UB, my intention was not to study dance, but to get into a profession. I was actually undergraduate. I was a sociology major. And so that was it. But this was the UB, this is the UB yearbook.
Oh my God. Look at those
this
pictures.
is
Oh, Lord have mercy.
1971.
That was the year I was born.
This is what we looked like. This was our first picture.
Awesome.
So, and this was part of who we were. One of the things that
you send those to me or scan
yes,
them?
I was trying to send this whole
Yeah, the pictures
Okay.
are hard.
and
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to get some more. I have to delete some files and switch some stuff into the cloud because it ended up in the queue and it wasn't moving. So I'm going to have to do some things, and because I found a lot of stuff.
Okay.
And something from the Spectrum, which talks about that first Black Arts Festival.
I got that link.
You did?
Yes.
Did you get that?
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
But you know what, Doug, during that time, it really was interesting. I call it the Black Arts Renaissance of Buffalo, because when we got started, there was the Black Drama Workshop, Nia Writer's Workshop, Ujima Theater Company.
And the
there
karate
was
the karate school.
Imani Music Workshop. There was so many of us that were, exploring the arts, expressing ourselves, very much like what you see happening now, because there was all kinds of things going on politically that had us engaged. And we were even out in the community much more than students who are attending those schools are out in the community now, because we found the African American Cultural Center and we didn't have any problem getting on the bus, exploring the city of Buffalo. And we were involved with with all of the artistic things going on in the city, and many of those things we initiated as students.
Okay, because I remember, since you mentioned it, and I know Francis earlier mentioned model cities, because that was right around the time when I was researching that for a documentary on model cities. That was when I first started hearing about the Black Dance Workshop. And I remember stumbling across pictures that actually came from Dr. Catherine Collins of the Model Cities Expo. And I saw a lot of I sent you all some of those, one of those pictures, because it was the one picture I remembered. You were at the expo. They had a lot of different vendor spaces with all the programs. And then you had the dancers and you all had your fists in, they all had their fists in the air. I thought that was a great picture. Can you have any memories of that expo?
You know what? It's so I don't even remember it. I mean, I see the pictures and I'm like, oh yeah, because I sent her. If it wasn't for the fact that Yvonne was calling me about this particular program, I hadn't looked at that book for like decades. So I went in this book and she got 68 pages of stuff that I had sent between articles and pictures, and it was so much stuff. And even when we applied for the grant, Okay, I got that as well. I mean, I just kept stuff, so but I just got, it was just memory, flashback. I remember a lot of the people, the new people that were coming in. I didn't remember them until I saw the picture. I'm like, oh, that's who that is. We got such history. It's unbelievable. We had John Parks come. We had Pearl Renners from a Dunham Technique and I got so much strength from this thing, okay? Because from there, the growth was immense. I mean, I didn't really feel like I was somebody until I started going through this process, but I put myself through it. Whatever it needed and whatever it took, I put myself through it. I don't remember all of the details. They got more of the details than I have, but I can tell you what I got from it, okay? Because it allowed me to go and do and teach on my own. Go figure. And I was never going to be a teacher. It got me to dancing, with Garth Fagan dance. Who thought? Okay, so it's all those things and travel to all these different places. That's the one thing that I got from it. I got a foundation to be a person, a woman, and and I can. Basically, is I can, and nothing can stop me. Okay, so that's one of the blessings of it. I just wanted to say that. Okay, you're next.
What were your memories?
No, I think that we were definitely, we are definitely examples of that Black girl magic, because
right. That's perfect.
We were young. We, was a combination of the energy, the sort of the times, the political and social, attitude and things that were going. All came together at the right time. And
Simone, remember the song "Young, Gifted, and Black"? That's what we were.
That's what we were.
Absolutely.
And let me say this too: we were more than just a dance school and a performing company. So when you talk about model cities, first of all, I have to give credence to my mentor back then, Jesse Nash Jr., who was the head of Model Cities. Yeah. And so he was the first African-American professor that I had ever known, because he was at Canisius and at UB and at Buff State. I don't believe there really weren't any Black faculty there until we started advocating. And I know we brought Black faculty, and Yvonne and I can talk about it too, UB, because we demanded that they get individuals in the departments that we were interested in. So we got someone from dance, and I got someone from history to come from, to bring a lot of attention to the curriculum. We also were able to get the first Black Studies program. And so that time it was a department. And so Kadiamu was the first graduate fellow into the Black History Department at the University of Buffalo, which lasted almost until, I guess, 2015 or 2014 was when they finally disbanded it. But, that made a major difference when you bring Black faculty in and when you start to change the curriculum. The other thing, we were involved with Model Cities because we were part of the community and economic development of the city, because we had a store. And I want you to know, we had a very successful store called Watu Sokoni, and Francis and Yvonne, were part of that initiative too. And I did all the buying. Right. And I was the manager and did everything in the store, because, and I always was involved with stuff like 78 Restoration Corporation, which was a corporation that included the Ellicott and Maston districts that were started under Model Cities. And we would talk about housing development and business. I was a member of the Jefferson Businessmen's Association. Also, our building became a magnet for lots of other Black buildings or Black enterprises on that Main and Utica corner. Because when we came to that Main and Utica corner, nobody was there. But
one was on that West
well,
Utica
you know
side.
what? There was one person there.
Yeah.
Downstairs from us in another little building, there was a hair salon. The hair salon was there. In fact, they were happy we came. But the hair salon was there. But Ruby Butts, who owned a health food store on Jefferson Avenue, she was the first African American health food store in the city of Buffalo. She was right next door to us. And so she fueled, I think, all of our interests, because Frances is a vegetarian. She changed the way she was eating. I changed the way I was eating. In fact, I was working in Miss Butt's store. And Yvonne also. So we
had our first yogurt with Mrs. Butts.
Right. Now this was on East Utica, right?
This is on East Utica side.
And the building is named in her honor. The apartment building that is next door, that was next door to her store. They named it the Ruby Butts building. I think
that used to be the Build Halfway House.
Yeah, the halfway house.
Right. And you know what? There's another connection between the Butts family and Jesse Nash. Jesse Nash married Hortense. Hortense was Mrs. Butts' daughter. Mrs. Butts had us in the Sojourner Truth Club, the Negro Businesswomen's Association. That's what she had me doing. And she would always be telling us about the Spelman woman and how we should behave and what we should do and what it meant for us to do the businesses that we were in. And she was someone that encouraged us, but it was a very special time in Buffalo, because Ujima's company started in the Black Dance Workshop. The other thing that started in the Black Dance Workshop was Freedom School. That's how I met Alnisa Banks, who became my best buddy.
And she was
Freedom School. The Freedom School was right upstairs at 11 East Utica. And the other thing is we had a karate school, Ishinru karate, with two black karate, black belt instructors.
Right.
And also we had a music school, Al Tinney. This was all in our building. Our building was an amazing mecca, I would say, for everyone, because when you own your own building, and we were the first to own our own building besides the African American Cultural Center. They owned their own building. What made our building really special is its location, because we were right there at a bus stop right there. Right, the bus stop was right there. People would get on that Utica bus. So it wasn't like you had to go into the community. We were right there on the outskirts of two booming communities, and people found it easy to get to us, and they were able to, do a number of things in our building. Like I said, you could bring your children to the Freedom School. You could bring your son to the karate lessons. Girls and boys went to that. We had classes, watatos. Everything that we did was Afrocentric. Everything. We were the first one to use red, black, and green. People didn't even know what red, black, and green was until we brought their attention to it. But we had red, black, and green walls, red, black, and green curtains. We had the store named Watu Sokoni, the People's Market. So and we had the Watatos class. everything that we did was African centered, along with everything that was happening with the other people, because you can't be an Ujima theater workshop without knowing something about what? The 7 principles of nation building, which was the Nguzo Saba. Yeah. This is before there was even Kwanzaa. We were early in on that movement. And I think we called ourselves cultural nationalists. And Yvonne wrote a very, I think, significant brochure for us where she called us a revolutionary dance tribe, because we understood that culture was what fueled the revolution. And why we knew that is because we were going to the Watu house, which was in Brooklyn, that had all of these dance things happening. And we were going to Jersey, where, who was the poet? Oh my goodness, famous poet that opened up an arts institution in Jersey.
Not Sonia Sanchez.
No, but we knew Sonia Sanchez because of the Nation. But
it wasn't Haki. It wasn't Haki.
No,
it wasn't
Haki. Right. He used to be, I remember, his name was Leroy Jones.
Oh.
Before
Amiri Baraka?
Amiri Baraka, right.
But at the time, well, he started out as Leroy Jones, just like
everybody else.
Everybody started out with it. We called it our government name. Everybody had a government name. Everybody changed it to an African name. But we would go to these various places, and we were influenced by these places when we were doing the work that we were doing. So we were keen on trying to bring New York as much as we could to Buffalo. And, you know, we love Buffalo because we began to work with the artists in Buffalo, musicians and different people in Buffalo, but we always was about adding to, and that's why we brought people like from the Ailey Company to Buffalo. Also, we had the largest amounts of federal and state money for any arts institution in the city of Buffalo. We got major support from New York State Council of the Arts and National Endowment of the Arts, who gave us a challenge grant to really establish ourselves as an institution. We were all about institution building. This wasn't just, you know, we're going to be a dance school and we just going to get some leotards and tights. We were selling their leotards and tights in the Watu Sokoni. And we were doing everything we could to further the development of the arts and culture in Buffalo.
It's very Afrocentric. Everything was Afrocentric. I think maybe one of the first spots I've ever heard Afrocentricity was in our location. We were like a directory for everything. Okay, so when Kwanzaa came, we did, you know, once I moved to Rochester, it was interesting. Kwanzaa would come up and people were not quite sure of what that was. In Buffalo, it's like Kwanzaa's here. Okay, so where do we go here? Where do we go? There was no, it's almost like there's no beginning or end when this happened. It was in our tradition, it was already in our blood. And I think because of who we were, the seed was so ingrained that, you know, if we need some information, come here, ask us, any one of us, we got that. Okay, so that was some of the beauty of it. And the fact that we had, you know, the African Culture Center in Langston Hughes. We also had that Muslim bakery that was on the other corner, remember? Okay, so we were like center. We were the center. Everything just seemed to be happening right there. But it wasn't like, I don't even know if it was like that was intended. It just was. That's why I felt like everything just kind of just melded into what the thing is. you know. And you were the one, Gail, who was, I mean, you logged in all that stuff. I was trying to dance and make sure I got things right, but you know, but you would log that in. And then and Yvonne, she's another one of those, you know. I mean, I'm more the artsy tart thing, you know, so I got that going on. I made costumes, you know, so I did things like that. But we have kids up the wazoo. We had kids and adults coming in there by the boatload. Everybody wanted to be a part of this thing.
Absolutely. And we were the first ones to bring samba and Caribbean dance and mix it in with African dance. We were doing salsa. Frances is the salsa queen now, though. I'm gonna tell you that.
Right? Absolutely.
Salsa, they need to put some kind of memorial up to you, Frances, for what Frances is doing in Rochester with salsa dance. But you know, we had the honor and privilege to bring in, you know, Emil Latimer. So we started to develop a whole group of drummers that had a specific style of drumming that was dedicated for dancers. Emil was amazing, and he got together with one of our dancers, Gail Lyons, and they started Sounds and Echoes of Yemen Yah. And it was Gail Lyons who brought in West African dance outside of Nigeria, which is the Yoruba dancing, and the Yoruba drums is a whole different set of drums and a whole different idiom from what she had learned in Senegal. And so she was the one that brought the djembe drum here. And she was the one that taught people how to dance to the break. Because before then, everybody was dancing to, you know, a count. We do 8 of these over here, we do 4 over here, we go front, then we go back. And Guy was the one that said, no, I went to Senegal and you got to listen to the drum. And so she, you know, elevated the dance style in Buffalo in terms of African dance. And we were innovating in modern dance, because these two sisters here, Yvonne and Frances, were and still are amazing dancers. I still dance in the water, but they were cutting edge dancers. Yvonne did this piece called Bag Lady. That was amazing. Frances did Grandma's Hands. We did a piece to Coretta Scott King that really put us on the map in terms of choreography around the assassination of her husband that won national attention with the insurrection that happened at Attica. We were brought in. There's a picture of me that they put in the Challenger, and I must have got 500 brothers that was in Attica writing me letters. But
you know, we have, I forgot to bring my book. We have a picture of us at the jail. Because they were there a couple of times where we performed at the jail.
So we went to Attica as a result of the insurrection in Attica, and we did all kind of programs there. After we did that Attica program, I started doing programs for women that were incarcerated. So we were one of the first. In fact, when they brought us in there, I think they also brought Nia Writer's Workshop. I think they also began to do some kind of writing workshops there. But we were brought into Attica. And in fact, Cardi, who is an excellent writer, has written several books. She wrote a poem about Attica, and I think it went into Essence magazine. But
in Black World, right? And
in Black World. So we were doing some. So we were doing some of everything. Like Frances said, it wasn't just dance. We were writing. I wrote for the Challenger. Started a magazine called Buffalo After Dark magazine. So we were doing some of everything. And Yvonne was brought in to help develop performing arts dance program because they needed, and rightfully so, some input around Black dance. And Yvonne was doing all kinds of programs, and so was Francis, in other schools. And what were y'all doing? What was it called? Where you go out in the suburbs?
We young audiences. So I toured with young audiences, so did Francis, for a number of years. And but I just want to just backtrack a little bit just to make sure we, in all, looking back and reflection, the person who really brought us together after we did that festival with Senior and we did those African dances was Kariamu. She was the one among us who had the most experience with choreography. While, I had dance training, I'd never really choreographed. I made up a few dances here and there. She had come out of a company out of Brooklyn as a high school dance student, and which was the Ron Davis dance company. And it actually was one of the training stomping grounds for Ben Vereen. And when she came to Buffalo, right. And when she came to Buffalo, that's how we all met under the Upward Bound program. We were the first in that first class of students who came to UB in the Upward Bound program. So we did the
1960, the summer of 1967.
So we did this festival in 69. When the festival was over at UB, the students said, why don't you form a club? We had so much fun. We enjoyed this coming together. So then we formed a club, and that's where the name, the Black Dance Workshop, came from, because we were a club, we were working together. It was everybody's input, and that's the whole idea of the workshop. Shortly after that, with the combination of model cities happening, and my memory serves me, I think there was a grants money floating around with the New York State Council on the Arts to be a pilot program, because remember in the 60s, there was so much going on in communities. And so there was pressure to, fund different, types of community initiatives and so on. We had a startup grant to teach children. After we had this club, the people in the club were students at UB, as we were. Some of them were from the city of Buffalo, and some of them had children. And they said, we'd love for you to come out into the community and teach these classes, because Gail and myself, Kariamu, and other members, we were all on campus. We were in the dorm. So we had not, while we had explored and gone off campus here and there, we did not have what you would say a base in the city. It wasn't that we had family here. None of us had anyone that we knew, relatives or anything. So we were pretty much on campus with this very active and vibrant student college club. So when this money came available and it was that you can have a startup program, we rented a studio on the off days from another dance studio. So the studio was owned by Francine Flood. She had it at above the Chicago Lunch restaurant, which was on the corner there near where McDonald's now stands. So there was a building there. The bottom of it was the Chicago Lunch. I think next door to it was Gardner Furniture. And above was this little studio. And that's where we rented this studio 2 days a week when Francine Flood, who was an African-American dance teacher, she taught tap and jazz. When she was not working there, we would teach the children. The grant provided not only the rental amount, but it provided free leotards and tights for the children. And as Gail and Francis were saying, it was in red, black, and green, the liberation colors. And so we taught the children then about, black for the color of our skin, red for the blood that's been shed, green for the land. So we were trying to just kind of infuse that thinking and self-pride with the children. So we started there. Then across the street, we weren't even there maybe a few months. Across the street was the big Delwood Ballroom. In the back of the Delwood Ballroom, as part of that complex, was another dance studio owned by a lady named Cora Tapson. And Cora Tapson moved out to the suburbs, but her studio, which was pretty nice, it was 2 rooms, became available. Well, we expanded across the street, and that's where we decorated with these red, black, and green curtains and so on. And we have photos of that. In any case, from there was how we ended up looking at the vacant building across the street when Model Cities at that time was funding people to get their own building or to, come into that. Now, I got to tell you, one thing that was truly unique about us is that we had this vision, and it was, I've got to credit Karyama with this, is that she was the one who said, Model Cities is not going to last. A lot of the groups that and institutions and organizations had good intentions.
Yeah.
But, she said, Model Cities is not going to last. We have to look at purchasing this building for ourselves to have ownership. With that, we started what we call tithing. Now, none of us were necessarily churchgoers. So the word tithing automatically comes out of the Bible, and you're giving 10%. Well, we gave more than 10%. We were giving like 60%. So Model Cities was providing us with our weekly salaries. We lived on one salary a month and donated 3 weekly salaries for 1 year.
We did one other thing too, okay?
Right.
$5,000. We each had to come up with $5,000. We had to go to our parents, okay?
You went to
each one, because there's 5 of us. Each of us $5,000 put into this.
I gave $5,000. So did Francis. Listen,
how we did it. We ain't got no skill set like that, but we sure did come up with 5.
And it was
5,000. We're gonna go buy a building. Like
because we had to buy the building, and
right.
we had to renovate the building.
Yes,
right. But that was our story, which was very different from a lot of the other institutions that were our contemporaries at that time, because it was that time that the idea of ownership in the community that you live in was really a mantra for the progressive thinkers of the Black movement. It's that we don't own anything. The money doesn't stay in our community. Right. And so was that back, we're going back into the early 70s by this time, it was
1971 to be exact.
Yes.
1971. But let me say this. I think for me, I had come from a very unique community. I came out of Harlem. There was Muhammad's Temple number 7, right there on 116th Street. So I already knew about the power of taking your money, because no, I wasn't someone that was into the Christian church. I was very connected, everybody in Harlem, with the Muslims. And so they had the same kind of idea, and also Garveyites. Garveyites were still very strong in Harlem. So their thing was, so I was raised with the idea of you can own it and you can do it with the monies that you generate on your own. And let me say this, and I'm gonna tell you why I knew this. The building that I lived in, that I grew up in, was abandoned by the landlord because of rent control. And do you know the people in my building banded together and kept that building, paid the gas, paid the rent, and took a building that was really had no owner at all, and they just did what we did. So I had seen it in action before I even came to Buffalo, and I think that's why I was so receptive to the idea that Cardi had for us. And Yvonne is right; it was her idea. We were so bonded together. People thought we knew each other before we got to the work. We didn't know each other. It wasn't like I knew Yvonne when she was in the Bronx. I didn't know Cardi, but what I did know is I knew the idea, and I knew the power of the idea, and I was really willing to buy into an idea. And that idea was amazing. It enriched my life in so many ways. I can't even begin to tell you all the ways that I grew as a result of these amazing women. Was it 6 of us or 7 of us?
I think at the time, though, it was 5 of us. No, wait a minute. Yeah, because including Glendora. Okay, so
it was me, you, I think it was 6.
Yeah, so Glendora wasn't the dancer.
It was Dora Johnson, Tina Young, and that was us. That was the 5.
That eventually became the last group, right? So
this
was
right. No, that one there.
Was the first
that was
group.
Therese in the middle, but we got the other one.
Yeah, that was the original. That's the founding group.
Yeah, this is the founding group right there.
Wasn't a founder.
Right.
I'm considered people of founders that put
this
their
is Kariamu. That's Gail. That's Gail Wells.
Yeah.
That's Frances. Myself.
Okay.
And this is Tina Young.
Okay, definitely make sure you send that to me.
Okay. Because those are the founding people.
That was the 5.
And you know what? And let me say this. Okay. We also taught at the Humboldt Y. We had a program at the Humboldt Y where we were teaching. Also, Kadiamu was the first person at Buffalo State College. They had a dedicated faculty position for someone in the community. And she was the first one to hold that position at Buff State. So she used to teach African-American dance at Buffalo State College. She got her PhD at NYU in dance and went on to leave Buffalo, and she joined the faculty, the dance faculty at Temple University. All of us got our degrees. All of us distinguished ourselves in our career. Frances just briefly talked about her career with Garth Fagan, but Frances was a principal dancer with Garth Fagan, traveled the whole world dancing with Garth Fagan. And
Africa for 5 weeks.
Yeah, and she has some picture all over Rochester. But I want you to know that Yvonne has gotten numerous awards from her students and from her peers around dance, and the work that she's done in dance. And me as an organizer in the community, I was so blessed. I got, 2 President's Awards from Buffalo State College for the work I did. I took students to Egypt twice. I took them to Cuba. I just did so much because my passion was education and history. Frances is not only a dancer, But Frances has artwork in museums around quilting. Frances is an amazing quilter, and she has so many different mediums because she is an expert sewer. And so Frances Yvonne didn't start out doing choreography, but Yvonne does choreography.
Yeah.
And Yvonne has been sought for her choreography. And so I think what's amazing is you have 3 Black women, and I won't tell you the age. When we bought that building, we were still teenagers. We were like, what, 19?
I was 19.
19, because I came at
God
7.
bless us all.
God
Lord have mercy.
We were young and in many ways naive, but we were driven by our passion for our people. We had a strong love for our people. And so
the right people came to us and also were mentors to us. We can't say enough about Mrs. Butts, who was really ahead of her time. She was, which we came to learn, was the first to have a health food store. She had a health food store on Jefferson Avenue, right there behind Gigi's. And she was a graduate of Spelman College. And Mrs. Butts told us her story was that while she was a student, she had traveled abroad to India and was very inspired. She came back and little things. She came back with a different perspective about diet. And we're talking when Mrs. Butts was in college, was back in what, the 50s? And no, earlier than that, the 40s, when she came out of Spelman. And so she was the one that shared that knowledge about health, and which is very, very important. And she used to talk to us like we were her daughters. She said, now you girls are all dancers. You should be taking care of your health. And we had never thought of that. We were, burger eating,
I mean, who's going to ask you about your feet? Now, she's the only one that asked me about my feet. She says, I want to see your feet. I'm like, oh, okay. It's odd, but okay, I'll show you my feet. She says, okay, the toes are apart enough. So, that makes you're doing good. So you should be dancing. And I'm like, sure. Okay. But I got to tell you, from her, like with all the situation that we have today, the foundation for my eating habits, I was keyed in. So when all this stuff happened and shut down and everything, I'm like, I started remember all the stuff that I had. Mrs. Butts is right there. And I remember especially the main things, those golden seal and echinacea and all that stuff. Right. And I'm like, okay, let me get to the store, okay, because I know this stuff and it's still existing out there. But we got, how did you, our links, it's accidental links that and we just put ourselves right in the spot where we can get stuff and get information. The fact that we had Watu Sokoni, that store there, the fabric, my quilting came from not watching people.
What was sold in Watu Sokoni?
We had all the fabrics, all the African art and artifacts. Okay, everything was Afrocentric, and we got stuff straight from the country. Okay, so from the continent. So that was no joke. I mean, we bought that stuff. We had Africans coming in there by the boatload, and I got from them, because they inspired some of the ways I like to quilt, how they combine fabric prints and colors, which in the Western mind would be like, okay, you don't put plaids and dots together. It's like, well, they came in with plaids and dots and they look pretty hot to me. So I'm going to do so, but it inspired, it said, wait a minute, there's no law here that says you can't. That's one of my cards. I make greeting cards as well. And that's fabric applique on paper, and I do watercolor painting on that. Then I sculpt the paper. What was I thinking? Okay, but that's where my head was. I got it 88.
You were amazing, and you are, Frances.
But
Watu Sokoni really started specializing in jewelry. Our interest was jewelry. And so we were bringing West Indian bangles, and we were audacious because we just went to Brooklyn.
I still had mine
a
from back
ton of
then.
money and just started buying stuff for this store that we had conceived of based on, again, our experiences in New York City and what we saw. So yes, so we
there it goes. There it goes.
really,
Right.
Yeah.
really
It is that old, and it doesn't leave my wrist. I'm just saying. Okay, so
really
that
Right.
old. Right.
amazing
Go ahead.
jewelry from designers who were African American.
Right.
We had Sandy Baker. We had she was being featured in Bloomingdale's for the jewelry that she was designing. She was major. There were articles on her in New York Times Magazine. We had another artisan from Egypt that was doing what we call Egyptian Arabic jewelry with scarabs on it, Alhamdulillah, written out in silver on rings. It was just amazing jewelry that appealed to everyone. Right. So all kinds of people came to Watu Sokoni. We didn't specialize in clothing.
No.
We didn't do that. We had special books that we had, really, J.A. Rogers. We were selling books before Harambe books. We were selling books. We were selling incense, very specialized incense, a Love Supreme incense that was highly regarded in New York City. You could only buy it from us. And then we sold from Brazil. We sold baskets, beautiful baskets. We called ourselves selling handcrafted items from around the world. And so West Indian, African, African-American artists, Cuban, all of that. So all over the diaspora. We brought it into Buffalo, very high quality. It wasn't trinkets. It wasn't the stuff that you would see. It really was a high form, and led us to open up a museum. That's a whole nother story.
That's what I wanted to get to. The Center for Positive Thought. Talk to us about what that was about.
Well, the Center for Positive Thought evolved actually when the group became to the attention and interest of Dr. Malifia Santi, who was on the faculty of UB. And it was similar to the institution that was in Chicago, Haki's institution, the
Hakeem Massabuti.
Right, and what was the name of it? Was the center in Chicago. It was similar in its concept. We started having, because we had a collection of African carvings and things like that, it started to, bring a lot of interest. And actually, it wasn't our intention to have a museum, but I remember that, through Malifi and his interest in trying to promote African art, and that whole way of thinking was the start of us having the museum, Museum of African Art.
But let me say this. It was easy for us to have the museum because the African artists, we were dealing with art, with traders and artists that were directly bringing these items in. So I brought in that Baganimba. Okay, so we had people that would come to see us, and they were selling museum quality African art, they were selling it to white dealers. See, I was going down in New York City to an area where all of these shops were, all of these wholesalers were. So it was easy for us to be known because we were the only one doing this. So they would know us. They would say, oh, those are the girls from Buffalo. They got a shop, these little young girls from Buffalo. We were dancers, so we had a little, you know, what should I say? A little, you know, flair. So everybody knew who we were. It was like, oh, these are the girls from Buffalo. They got a shop. So we would meet people and they would then say to me, they would say, Gail, you need to buy this. This is, though, they taught me about African art. They taught me about antiquities. They taught me about the art that, they told me the story of the art that we were purchasing. So I would go and buy art books with all of with our mud cloth in it, showing you how you make mud cloth, where it came from. So again, I'm a historian. I want to know the story. I ain't interested in just selling something and someone doesn't know where it came from and the significance of it, how it was used in the culture. So when we were selling things, that's why people love to come in there, because we knew what we were selling. We knew the story of an art. We knew this. We knew what the Egyptian symbols were, and we were bringing in some of the most exceptional thinkers of the day, writing the most, not only Haki, but also Asa Hilliard, Dr. Ben.
Dr. Ben Yakanan, right.
Yeah, so people were coming in through us and learning and going to lectures and seeing what was in the Watu Sokoni, because they knew they couldn't find it anyone else, and they knew it was authentic. They knew it wasn't made for somebody that just wanted to have a zebra or you know, whatever.
And I just want to say, I wanted to just add that, you know, some of what we did and you know, because we're you know, jumping around because it was so much. We started the store because we wanted to go to Africa, and we were trying to get money to go to Africa. And when some of us who go back home to New York, people admired the jewelry. And as Gail said, we got it from a lot of artisans who were, you know, in New York, you have artisans on the street. And so we got, you know, earrings and bracelets and all of that. That's how we started. And the reason we started, we were trying to raise money to go to Africa. From that, it expanded. And when we had the store, and we brought the merchandise from our humble start to this larger storefront, we had to, you know, obviously expand our inventory, which we did. Gail did a tremendous amount of research, and coming across one artisan and craftsman, we were introduced to others. One of the things we were very intent on was working and highlighting the artistry of many Black artists and African artists. And so we sold bush combs, and the Afro picks we sold were not the commercial ones. No. There was this brother who had his own company out of his apartment in the Bronx called Indugo. And Indugo is Swahili for brother. And he would make these hand-carved, beautiful combs that were bush combs in all different shapes. And it was so beautiful, the brothers would buy them and, you know, just stick them up there so they would see the carving. And we used to go to Jesse Jackson at that time in Chicago would host a wholesale vendors, you know, conference where he would bring all across the country, African-American shop owners and so on, to this one spot in Chicago where you could go if you were a store or a boutique or whatever, and you could meet personally with artists and people who were making things that you could take back and buy wholesale and take back to your shops. So from there, that's how it started and evolved into the museum. There was one particular, wholesaler who was from West Africa, who lived in Canada. And he came down with the initial start of several pieces of work that we ended up purchasing to start off the museum. And one of the pieces, which was not actually in the museum, but we used it during Kwanzaa, which Gail was instrumental in obtaining, was the large Kinara. So we had one that was like
from Haiti.
It was like maybe 10 to at least 10 feet tall. And that Kinara, you had to stand on a ladder to put the candles in. And
but the work that we were getting from Haiti, we were interested in Haiti because of Catherine Dunham. So at least that's why I was interested in Haiti, because of the work that she was doing. And I began to read about all of the different connections that Haitians still maintain with the continent of Africa. And I saw the most incredible artwork that they were doing in Haiti. And we were selling these iron cutouts of, they were round and they were huge, and they would have the sun and all the things that represented Haitian culture. We were the only ones that were selling that. I had an unusual eye. I loved,
that was her forte.
Jewelry and things that were different. And so we were known for that. And we would be known too for paying our bills, because you gotta have a good reputation. And we spent lots of money. So back then, there was nothing for me to go shopping with $10,000, $20,000 to bring things back. Now, if you think of $10,000 or $20,000 in 1971, that was a lot of money. That wasn't a little bit of money. So we used our money wisely. Remember, we said that we did that tithing? We used that money wisely and made sure that whatever we got, we were getting quality, and it was something easy for us to sell. And
question for Doug, because Doug said to me, you came with your class to the museum.
Yes, we did. I've been on a few.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you did that? Do you remember?
I had to have been around 10, 11 years old, around that time.
Wow.
I think we were the first African American museum in the city of Buffalo.
Oh, absolutely.
Our experiences, we were the first for a lot, but you know what? I told Yvonne, I said, but nobody really knows our story anymore. The time that we were doing everything, everybody knew about us. But once we, closed the workshop, I began to see that people were attributing some of the work that we did to other people, and the stories were all getting mixed up. And
that happens in Buffalo.
So, you start to hear stuff and it blatantly isn't true. And so
we were the first ones to have Kwanzaa, and it was in 1978, if I'm not mistaken. 77 or 78, but we in fact, Francis, which I'm going to send to you, Doug, sent the first one of the first agendas of Kwanzaa. How we started to have the first one was that Dr. Asante was good friends with Dr. Karanga, and he was the first one. Malifi Asante was the first to bring Dr. Karanga to Buffalo. And I remember meeting Dr. Karenga in the summer when he came, Tambuzi, horn, right.
Yeah.
And
Rasuli.
Rasuli, Daryl Rasuli.
They both
and they all came out of that California, think tank. And so it was through that we became introduced. We had heard of Kwanzaa, but we met its founder. And we hosted, when I say we, it was the Center for Positive Thought that hosted the first Kwanzaa, the public Kwanzaa for the community. And we had this beautiful, huge Kinara that was like 12 feet tall, and so that was the very first one. And then the Center for Positive Thought also became a think tank. On Sundays, there were speakers who came in. It became a venue for poetry readings, dance performances. There were all kinds of different workshops. But the spirit of the whole institution was the community. Yeah. And I want to, because I know we've gone over time, but before we finish, I want Frances to tell you about her program that was part of our program, but she coordinated something with the youth and the adults.
Yeah, my thing was, I was a part of a lot of little programs, little shows that we've done before, but this one I called it the TNC, mainly because this was when I was going to bring the adults and the kids all together, and they're going to be also performing together. The main thing was that we're going to take Kariamu's poetry, and that's going to be a part of the program. So we were creating movement to her poetry, and the kids and the adults were going to be performing to that. And that became massive because it was just a little bit more unique than just having your music and we're going to dance to this particular music. Now we're basically acting and doing performing a dance at the same time. So this was it was fabulous because you had the little Watatos up into the teenagers, up into the adults, and then there's a point where they all come together. I had set up so that we have at that time we had Unistage, so we can go and get risers, and put it in the studio and get lights. Okay, and then we had a baked goods sale, and we sold $200 at a baked goods sale. What a feat for a baked goods sale!
And we served tea.
Tea, right? All that. We were all that.
We did everything. We did discos out of our building.
And that with that program, what was interesting was that because I was so caught up in getting them all together, I forgot my clothes for that event. So now I'm sitting here, the event is going on within less than an hour. I can't go home. So one of the mothers got me a dress and dressed me, and I came out and I introduced the program. It was fantastic. So that was a real serious community. Everybody, it was loaded in there. People were standing up and they were all in the risers, and and these kids, and then the teenagers do their thing, then the adults do their things. When we're doing her poetry, the whole thing was such a all encompassing thing. Just like the center of the positive thought, it's a center of everything. Okay. Because it was completely about urban and people and, communication, connection, all of that sort of thing. I still do that now. Okay. I believe in it, and I believe we need more of it, but doing that particular thing, it just took me to, a whole other, I do it here, though I stopped now because I'm,
Let me ask
we're relaxing right now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Also that was going around another thing that was going on around this time was the Juneteenth festival. Started in
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
What was the involvement of the Black Dance Workshop with the Juneteenth festival, the original ones on Jefferson?
Well, I was on the original committee for Juneteenth, founding member, and I had two roles, and it was interesting. I was there for the School of Movement Black Dance Workshop, because they had all of these committees. And so you could be on a committee. And naturally, I was on the committee.
Ah! Oh my God. Oh, we don't have enough for all this information.
On the arts committee. And I remember working with Bill Cooper. And we were working together on trying to do something with the vacant spaces. And so he was painting and doing things like that. And Francis knows I was in a relationship with Michael Copeland, who owned the tire store. And
Yes.
So if you look at that, so I was a member of the Bad Habit Pack along with Francis, and we didn't have no bad habits.
No.
Francis used to be the money person at the discos, so that's why we started doing discos. Me and Francis was out in the middle of the night, doing discos. We were involved with people, musicians, Pappy Martin. We knew everything that was going on with the jazz scene. Rick James.
Yep.
Even the Bills, Randy Smith.
Oh.
We knew everybody. Anybody that was doing something. We were familiar with, and we had some kind of connection to, because we were innovative thinkers. We were easy to partner with because we had a building. We could control when it opened and closed. We had money to spend on things. So if there's one thing that I want people to get away or come away with, is that we were the first group of Black women, was all women, to get together and open up so many enterprises, from the dance school to the performing company. We didn't tell you about all the places that we performed at. Amazing places.
Where'd you perform?
Well, we did several major New York City festivals. We did the Winter Dance Mobile. We did Riverside Dance Theater Church, Dance Theater Workshop, Clark Center for the Performing Arts. When we did Dance Theater Workshop, we were in New York. We had a contract for a month to perform every weekend for 4 weeks in a row. So we had, those of us who had our family in New York, we would drive down and we would, pile up in one person's house was sleeping on the floor. So we were afraid that if someone, I lived in the Bronx, but it was like if someone went there and somebody went there, we may not get to the show on time because we were all, traveling on the subway. Once you drive down, you don't drive around in New York. You park your car and you take the subway. But anyway, we did New York City. We did the Winter Dance Mobile at Symphony Space. We did Clark Center for the Performing Arts. And we're actually in this book, Dance World. So our picture is in this book for dancing. And so we did a lot of that. We did the colleges we did. We went
tell about the college.
SUNY Albany, here locally, UB, Buff State, Canisius, SUNY Albany, Oberlin, Simmons College, right outside of Boston. That was when Guy Lyons was a student. Bowdoin College in Maine. We were at Howard University. We were invited by the Black Conference for the Black Social Workers, and we performed at Howard University. We performed trying to think. We were also under Hospital Audiences Incorporated. It was called HAI, H-A-I. And from that, we did Albion State Prison. We did the state hospitals. We did in Medina, New York. We did it wasn't the halfway house, but the facility they have in Medina. So we did those as part of that contract. So, you know, and Clarion, Pennsylvania, we were at
and then when we were doing that, to talk about the reach, we had our own drummers. So we introduced people and we were paying these drummers. We had someone else that was working with us that was doing our lighting design. And so we were giving people opportunities to learn lighting and do stage management, all of that. We did all of these things in-house, either with individuals that were already doing it, but the important thing is that these were Black people. So we were using our own people and we were developing our own skill sets. It's not like I came to Buffalo and I knew how to be a buyer. I knew how to do inventory. I was able to do, I taught myself that through the experience, because it wasn't like anybody else knew it in our group either. But we were smart enough that if there was something we wanted to learn, we knew that we could go someplace and get the information. So it wasn't like we were making all of these mistakes or whatever. We would go down to what I consider to be one of the #1 Afro boutiques in Harlem, and we would just say, "Hi, my name is Gail Wells, and I'm opening up a store in Buffalo. Can you help me get started?" And we never had people who ever turned us away because they knew that what we were doing from our heart, and they wanted to help us. It was a lot different than maybe what some people experience now. But we grew up at a time when people were willing to help people, and they would see young college students and we were amazed. They would open up the door and say, "This is what you need to do." And we listened. You know, we didn't think we knew it all. We listened to Mrs. Butt. We listened to other people who had gone before us, and we were able to take what we learned. One of the things I was telling Yvonne last night is the Nation of Islam, where it was engaging the Black Dance Workshop because they wanted to start a national company, a national dance company from the work that we were doing as a foundation. So they wanted our dancers, they wanted Francis to do the costumes because Francis had a unique way of covering the body with the material, but still allowing a dancer to be able to move. So we were considered innovators in that way, the way we use costumes and lights. Yvonne talked about how we use poetry and the music selection and all of that. And so the nation was very interested in attracting young Black women into the nation. And they wanted progressive artists, and they wanted people that they thought would be role models. And that's one of the things that we were doing in the city of Buffalo, is we didn't talk about the fact that we wanted Black women to know that Black was beautiful. We wanted Black children to know that they were truly talented and they could do anything.
Okay.
One of our teachers, Pearl Reynolds, her husband was in the hierarchy of the
Minister
New York
of
City
Information.
Mosque. Yeah, in the nation in New York. And so through his network of people, we became part of the junket of events that some of the Muslim community had that were public events where they would host entertainers. They would have a bazaar where African-American businesses could come and sell their wares and showcase things. So from that connection, we did the Philadelphia Nation of Islam Bazaar, which was open to the public. It wasn't that it was a private, and it was huge. And we opened for, as a group, we opened for a lot of big names. Like we opened in Philadelphia for Sun Ra, and then a group, an R&B group that had a hit song, the Detroit Emeralds. So we opened for them in Philadelphia. In New Jersey, we opened at another Muslim bazaar for Blue Magic. And I'll tell you how as I say, green we were. Now, we were used to a concert type of, mentality and venue. When you get into the entertainment world, it's a little bit different. And so you're sharing a dressing room, and, we're very modest, right? And we're trying to change costumes, and you have all of these guys and musicians, it's like, okay, baby, yeah, just take it off. We don't care, it's like, no. So, because we were trying to make quick changes in our costumes, and there was no real dressing room in the back. So we're holding up, a coat or something while each of us is changing. But anyway, that introduced us to another level of performing. We also opened for Spider Martin in Rochester. Spider Martin had just composed a piece. He asked Karyamu, he commissioned her to do a jazz piece to this new jazz composition he had composed. And we opened in Rochester at the Midtown Mall, which at the top of the mall, they had opened up a beautiful nightclub called Top of the Town. And so we got there. Now, I was just explaining to Francis the other night, when we did that, that was very different for us. We were used to a concert. A concert starts 7, 8 o'clock. You're done by 10, 11 o'clock. Well, this started at 10. And then we did 2 sets, as you would in a club. And then I thought we were done by 1, but it's like, no, we want the dancers back on. So we danced until 2 o'clock, and that was a challenge. But those were the types of different experiences through the network. And we as I said, we started gaining the attention of some of the hierarchy in the Muslim community through our teacher, Pearl Reynolds, who was a former member of the Catherine Dunham Dance Company.
Which was a big deal.
I want to ask this question. Now, I saw something about the School of Movement. Was that something different? Or
that was our training program. So the workshop, as we started as a dance group on the college campus, and then people wanted us to teach their children. We came up with the idea to have a dance school.
And the Black Drama Workshop was something different too. That was
totally different. So the Black Drama Workshop was Ed Smith's,
Smith.
Who was on the faculty.
We worked together.
We were all evolving at the same time and applied to Model Cities. So you might see our names on the same roster for funding at the same time, but we were different entities. The Black Drama Workshop and School of Movement.
But how we worked together was they would do a play and we would be the dancers that they would use for some of the parts of the play. For example, Francis, I'll never forget when we did that piece, Take the A Train and Sophisticated Lady. So we were actually dancing live to musicians, jazz musicians. People were used to seeing dancers dance live to African drummers, but they weren't used to seeing dancers dance live to jazz music. So we were doing live performances with jazz artists. And also we were dancing in theatrical productions. And we were sometimes doing the choreography for those productions.
So that was right. That was Ed Smith had brought in the jazz musician Frank Foster, and that's who we were performing for. Frank Foster. Frank Foster was a well-known saxophonist, and Ed Smith, who was the director of Black Drama Workshop, had brought him into UB at Harriman Hall. And he wanted to do a tribute to Ellington. Frank Foster did. And so that's how he commissioned Kariamu, who was, our director and the choreographer for our company. And so that's how that happened. Yeah.
But that degree of, I think what's significant is that degree of interchange between artists is something that I wish I saw more now, where artists would be working together in different idioms, like, dancers working with musicians and them working with poets and, not just being on the program, like we see that, but I mean, actually co-creating together and, I see Drea doing that.
Yeah.
Yes, and I definitely want to give a shout out to Drea and her amazing documentary she produced on Nina Simone's visit to Buffalo. And there was a part in there on the Black Dance Workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing about the building, and I think because of being a center of positive thought and school of movement, everything was also movement. And also the place was big. Okay, we were able to hold, we had room for Watu Sokoni, we had room for a big dance studio space, we had a room for a small dance studio space, or for anything in that other space. We had the basement, which was also used for activity as well. So it was a very huge space. Everybody
and the second floor.
And the third or the second floor, which was the museum. So this was a huge space. Everybody wanted to be a part of that because everybody can see it. They saw it on us, so therefore it's like, okay, go there.
Yes, it was a beautiful space. Not only was it big,
but decorated
it was
enough.
One of the most beautiful spaces in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Okay, so is anything else that, as we get ready to wrap up, is there anything else that anybody would like to say?
Well, I just like to say it's just been a wonderful journey. I mean, for myself, I was able to hone my skills as a dancer and a teaching artist, from the workshop experience. I'm grateful to many of the mentors and people in the community, some who are here and some who are always with us in spirit, who saw something in us. And as I went on to work with young people, as we all have, you never know when you say something to a young person that you're giving them encouragement and inspiration. And that's what we were able to have. And I hope that, as young people, as Buffalo becomes a breeding ground for the next generation of artists, that they're able to get those connections and that people support them and go out to their performances and, give them, some encouragement. I mean, that's what's important. I mean, that helped us to get to where we are and what we became in our careers. And I just want to give a shout out to Frances. I mean, her work was in the Museum of Modern Art in Manhattan. I mean, that's everyone's work doesn't get into the Museum of Modern Art. And, so it's that kind of thing. Also, her work traveled with the exhibit called Women of the Cloth. And these were nationally recognized quilters. For Gail, all that she's done traveled internationally with students from Buff State. And, you know, just teaching them and guiding them. And when I hear Gail tell me her experiences with talking to students, it reminds me of how Miss Butts talked to us.
Yeah.
Because many of the students now are not, they don't dig deep enough sometimes. Yeah. And they think that they're the first ones to do something.
Right.
And I think it's part of the technology that, you know, if you don't see it on the internet, that means it didn't exist beforehand. And so, you know, I think Gail's beautiful and just far-reaching message to young people is that dig deep, know where you came from, know your roots, know that you're stepping on the shoulders of someone who came before you. And I think that that was something that we always realized because, like, for example, when we had Pearl Reynolds, she was telling us about Catherine Dunham. And, right. You know, we realized that, you know, we're stepping on the shoulders of others who've paved that path. And we have to keep teaching those lessons to the artists who are coming up. Don't give up. You know, there are people who've struggled to get you to this point. So you have to take the torch now and carry it on. And I thank you, Doug, for this fantastic, fantastic time of sharing for us, even in the pandemic.
Yeah, I know. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun to do. It was also a lot of fun to go and look at all of the stuff that we've done. I mean, that the album is unbelievable. And Melissa said, it's 68 pages, friends. I'm like, 68 pages? You know, it's amazing how we got so grounded. I mean, with Pearl Reynolds, I think
I'm gonna put it together in a book.
Yeah, Pearl, when she came in, this chick, I mean, when she pointed her foot, you could cut wood with that. She was so strong. I mean, I looked at her and I'm like, really? Are we planning to do that? But you did it, you know, because I believe her, because she said, do it. And so I believed her. In being with her, I mean, we got strength of a whole other level, okay? Because we weren't doing bar work, but my girl had that Dunham technique, which had us at that bar, and we were on the floor doing all this stuff. And I said, okay, I guess I can do this. And it made it feel more possible. And then I started enjoying it. I mean, this is like, oh, this is so cool, you know, and then to be able to teach it to other people and watch people change, because that's the thing that I really like about the teaching part, is that it gave me a chance to see people change. It's like, and I'm contributing to helping the community, and I'm helping these kids. And then when I, you know, once I came out of the company, okay, outside of that, you create the great friends and all that tough stuff too. But, you know, Nina Simone came to visit us. Okay. So we were doing dances to her music. Okay. And we're looking at her. Okay.
We did a private concert for Nina Simone. We did a concert of all the works.
Right. You know, so you had that John Parks, who was there, you know, when I was trying to learn how to dance, and he said, you should point your foot. And I looked at it and said, that's a long way to try and make a point. But, you know, after a while.
He's in that video that he's in that video you sent us. Right. That's John Parks from the Alvin Ailey Company.
Video that you video to me too.
Right.
Yeah, it was awesome. You know, but all of that fed into, okay, what can I do? Because now I'm starting to feel confident. Okay. My artwork, I also got blessed by having that Watu Sokoni, because that was an inspiration right there with the fabrics and different textures and shapes and all that sort of thing. That inspired me. So then I thought, let me just go and just do art, do my crafts. And then somebody says, well, why don't you just try going to Rochester? Let's see what's happening there, because I was going to take a break. Okay, then I said, okay, let me go there. And then I jump into a class that was closed. Didn't care. I just took it. And they said, you should come here. And then next, you know, I'm dancing at another level. And we're traveling to all these different places. So this has been such a blessing, you know, and even as I'm dancing, I like to see people change. It's like, wow, Francis, you know, and I say, you can do this too. This is not just me. I didn't start off this way. I came into it late. It's all possible. It can happen. But you gotta be, again, look at your history. How many people that have done it before you? You're not alone. I said, there's a learning curve. There's a reason why it's called a learning curve. It's struggle to get to that curve. And then after that, you're ready to fly. Okay. So that's the thing that I took from it. So, I'm thank you, and Yvonne, for making me go through this stuff, and then I'm taking extra pictures to put it in my album so that I can keep it. I don't want to keep it just in paper, though the paper is kind of brown, but it's okay. It's gonna be good. But we need to get it all in that one. You talked about the one spot that we can put it in. This kind of.
We need to do it.
We're gonna create a Dropbox.
Right.
That's what we need to do, is to create a Dropbox.
Yeah.
I just want to get a picture of all of us.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Gail, is anything else you'd like to say before we close?
I think everything has really been said. It was amazing to talk to you, Doug, about doing something on the Black Dance Workshop and you being so open to doing it. I've watched you. I know your mom. I live right behind your mom here in Buffalo. And I have a connection. We did a project at School 53 with one of her most difficult age groups, one in the 7th and 8th grade, which are the groups that me, Francis, and Yvonne, we know how to deal with young teenagers and college students. So it's been an amazing journey. I wouldn't give anything for the journey that I was on with these amazing women that are with me on this call. There was a lot of lessons learned and a lot of wonderful moments that I'll cherish forever. And so, still doing the work, got Freedom Gardens, I'm doing my thing, Yvonne, we'll never retire, will we?
No.
We're gonna keep on going.
Hey, I told folks I'm dancing till I'm 100, so I don't know about y'all. So don't be looking for the shoe to drop. It's not gonna drop for you.
Francis, I've seen your pictures.
I'm a testament to Mrs. Butts. I'm living to 100. And I said, and I'm gonna be moving. Francis and Yvonne know I still love to dance. I'm dancing. I'm doing everything. So yes. Okay. So we're here to say you can do it.
Okay, ladies, it was wonderful having you on here for the Buffalo.
Thank you.
All I had to do was I knew all I had to do.
I know. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to our little book. We'll put it all together, and then we can give it to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.